Hi everyone, my name is Amy Mobby. I'm the Education Manager here at Jenkins Arboretum and Gardens. Welcome to today's Wednesday Walkabout. We're going to focus on a group of native plants called spring ephemerals. If you notice that I'm low to the ground, that's where you're going to find our spring ephemerals this time of year. When they're coming out after the ground thaws, it's cold out and windy, and they're nice and protected lower to the earth. Their whole life cycle happens really quickly by the time the ground thaws and our trees leaf out. So right now they're soaking up the sun rays and attracting pollinators and hoping that they can go through their life cycle really quickly before the canopy leaves out and they lose that precious sunlight. Spring ephemerals come in all different shapes and colors, and I hope you'll enjoy exploring them with me today. So here we are at Hepatica acutaloba, and this spring ephemeral shows a great adaptation about how the flowers are often cup-shaped. And that cup shape actually helps the sun and heat to be directed onto the reproductive parts to get the cycle going really quickly. Because remember, spring ephemerals are coming out before the tree canopy leaves out, and so they're trying to go through their life cycle really quickly. So this kind of cup-shape adaptation helps them to grow and go through their life cycle quickly. If we look at Hepatica a little bit closer, you'll see that the leaf shape has 3 lobed leaves. Hepatica is a great example of the doctrine of signatures. Historically, people saw plants that had characteristics that might have looked like a body part or an organ and put a connection together that that plant should help and be the medicinal healing for that ailment or for that organ. So historically, in the doctrine of signatures, Hepatica was used to treat liver diseases and liver ailments, which actually is not correct, and it did not help, and sometimes it actually didn't go the right way. So, but an interesting factoid, and Hepatica actually is also derived from the word hepar, which means liver. So here we are at Dutchman's breeches, which is Dicentra cucullaria. And the really neat thing about Dutchman's breeches is that it looks a little different from some of the spring ephemerals that have cup-shaped flowers. This one actually has flowers that look like a little pair of pantaloons, hence the reason it's called Dutchman's breeches. And so if you look closely at the flowers, it's kind of hard to tell how many petals the flower might have, but it actually has 2 outer petals that are kind of inflated. And then on the inside, there's 2 petals that are tightly wrapped around the reproductive parts. And there's a relationship with Dutchman's breeches and our native bumblebees, in which this is a great early nectar source for especially the queen bumblebees. And they have enough power and a long enough tongue in order to disengage and kind of pull apart those inner petals and use its tongue to get that nectar reward. So here we are at one of our really special spring ephemerals. This is Trillium. And Trillium is a great name for this plant because of tri meaning 3. So you can see that we have 3 leaves, 3 sepals, and 3 petals. There's a couple different groups of Trillium. One is what we call sessile Trillium, and the other is pedicellate Trillium. This is an example of a sessile Trillium because you can see how the flowers and the sepals are borne right on top of the leaves. If we were looking at a pedicellate Trillium, you would see that the sepals and the flower is actually attached by just a little bit of a stalk that would be on top of the leaf. We also notice that there's kind of a mottled appearance to the leaves, and we call this toad shade as a common name. One great adaptation for spring ephemerals is that a lot of them give off either an odor or have little nectar guides on the petals to kind of tell the pollinators where to go. This one, an example, this Trillium, actually has a little bit of a smell. Often, sometimes humans can't pick up the smell, but this one I can. It definitely smells sweet. Here we are in front of bloodroot, Sanguinaria canadensis. And if you look closely at the plant, you'll notice that there's a stem with 1 flower and there's one leaf that kind of clasps around that flower stalk. What's really neat about our bloodroot is that it's an example of a spring ephemeral that can either be insect pollinated or self-pollinated. So if within a couple days, if bloodroot isn't insect pollinated, the anthers will bend in and it will actually pollinate itself to ensure that there's seed production and that there's more bloodroot to come. So bloodroot is named for the underground structure, the roots that actually bleed red when they're kind of broken open. And Native Americans would use those as paints or as dyes, but something to consider. It's a great story to know, but we don't want to dig our spring ephemerals up to get to see those characteristics. Here we are with trout lily, Erythronium. There's a couple species that we have here at Jenkins. One is Americanum and the other is Rostratum. And one of the spring ephemeral adaptations that you'll really notice with our trout lilies is that spring ephemerals often close their petals on cloudy days or at night to protect their pollen and their nectar. So you can see some of the flowers down here are closed up. Some are starting to open as we had a nice cloudy, drizzly day this morning, and now we're getting some sunshine on them. When you're looking at trout lily, you'll notice in and around that there's lots of speckled leaves. Those are the leaves of trout lily, and you'll notice that there's single leaves, and then there's some that have leaves with flowers. The single-leafed trout lilies will not bloom, but the trout lilies with two leaves will bloom for the season. Here we are with twin leaf, Jeffersonia diphylla. Jeffersonia is actually named for Thomas Jefferson, and diphylla meaning two leaves. If you look closely at the leaf, they look like two mirror images, but it's actually one leaf that's been pinched really close in the center. Twin leaf, after it blooms, produces like a little urn or cookie jar shaped seed pod. And the seeds, when they come flying out, they have a little appendage attached to them called an elaiosome. And the elaiosomes are something that ants really like to eat. So the ants will come to twin leaf and many of our other spring ephemerals and harvest the seeds, bring them back to their nest. They'll eat the elaiosomes and then throw the seed kind of in their garbage pile of sorts in their nest. And basically what they're doing is planting our seeds. They're actually helping to protect the seeds of our spring ephemerals by keeping them safe down into their nests so other things like rodents or other wildlife won't eat them if they just dropped off the plant naturally. Thanks for joining me on today's Wednesday Walkabout. I hope you learned something new and plan to come to Jenkins for a visit sometime soon to see spring in all of its glory.